Thank you for joining today's webinar, Must-Have Features You Should Demand of Your Accounts Payable Automation Solution. Today's speakers are Wendy St. Clair, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Kofax, and Chris Subramaniam, Practice Director, Optima Global Solutions. During our session, we will cover company introductions and a market overview, must-have features of an effective AP automation solution, how Optima Global addresses accounts payable with TranscendAP, and at the end, we will have a Q&A session. Please remember, you can submit questions at any time using the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen. Now, I would like to welcome Wendy St. Clair. Wendy?
Thanks, Kaylee. I want to start today by setting the stage, talking a little bit about why now have this conversation about AP automation. As Kaylee mentioned, I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Kofax. My role is to help companies make the most of available automation technologies to save money and time. And as we are evolving our business and working with customers, we're finding many of their priorities have changed as they work and grow through this new normal world that we live in. One thing is for sure, automation is here to stay, and smart companies are using this time to identify the low-hanging fruit areas where they can make improvements. And AP is one area where many are looking closer than ever to leap ahead. And as we talk with companies, we're seeing three specific new organizational challenges driving their decision-making around technology investments for their future. I've outlined them below. These are the things that are on every business buyer's mind when you're trying to identify where to focus your time and money through this time of uncertainty in our economic situation. First on the left is the need for technologies to support a remote workforce. We saw the spike in video conferencing, and I'm sure other industries are seeing others. But when you're 100% remote, who opens the mail to get the invoices coming in by paper? How do you scan and pass these invoices around? Who cuts and signs the checks? Companies need to communicate and to shift physical workflows to virtual ones. And because of this, we're seeing a resurgence in AP automation solutions. Second comes the need for a stronger cash flow management system. With sales and supply chains being disrupted, companies need a plan for managing their cash. They need to optimize how they funnel invoices through the system to keep suppliers and customers happy. This is, again, where automation tools can really help. Automating invoice capture and AP workflows removes the need for someone to physically walk around an office and move an invoice by hand. This can dramatically reduce the cost companies spend per invoice and eliminate the risk of errors and fraud. Last, in this time of needing to preserve cash, companies are going to be looking for tools that have a lower upfront cost and a higher return on investment and a faster return on investment that can show their value quickly. This means no more waiting for a year to see results. We need quick wins, no-brainer investments, low-risk, high-reward initiatives only. These are the three things I want you to keep in mind as we talk through where you're headed as your business going forward. Given the cautious state of today's business, the question is what to do now. Do we wait it out? Do we double down? There's a number of studies showing how past winning companies performed during previous economic downturns. And the numbers show that while many companies lose revenues during this time, something like 75%, other companies use it as a springboard to leap ahead. And the differences seem to be these three things here. Number one, winning companies acted early to make moves. They saw danger on the horizon and they swiftly went ahead and addressed it. Number two, they took a long-term perspective. Sure, short-term solvency is always critical, but these companies showed a propensity to look ahead and embrace how they can get ahead of the competition in the long run. And third, they focused on growth, not just cost cutting. So this meant they pursued efficiencies to improve profit margins, but they also grew sales twice as large as their competitors. So we call this helping you accelerate through the turn, being smart, thinking ahead, and making the changes that will allow you to make a move that will leapfrog you ahead. So when I apply that thinking to AP automation, I see opportunity for companies, and here's why. On this slide are a few charts. First on the left is the percent of businesses that are still capturing invoices manually. This is from 2019. Over half, or 57% of businesses, are still primarily doing capture by hand. They're opening the mail and scanning the invoices, or they're getting them by email and then rekeying them into their systems. Additionally, 50% of companies, or half, are still routing those invoices around the office by hand, meaning individuals must review them and match the data, verify everything, and approve it by hand. Great. So why is that important? Look on the right slide here. If you look to the right, you can see the largest businesses are the ones that have already automated. Mid-market and SMBs are way behind. So knowing this and understanding the dramatic change in cost per invoice, you can be from $10 an invoice down to $2, for example. That means that big businesses are killing it just by doing this one thing. And my takeaway for you from this is if you're not yet automated and you want to keep your margins intact, especially as competition stiffens, invoice capture, e-invoicing, and invoice routing are the first places to look. This brings us to today and why we invited Optima Global here to join us for this webinar. AP automation truly is a game changer, and now really is the time to start thinking about it. We want you to leap ahead to find the right path to accelerate through the turn now. Optima Global is a business process automation company. They do IT consulting and professional services. They are celebrating over 18 years in business, and they have been a Kofax Platinum Partner since the year 2014. In fact, they were last year, 2019, Solution Partner of the Year. In this role, they've worked with a number of Kofax clients, Pet Partners, Kaiser Aluminum, Leviton Manufacturing, Sun Optima, and many more I can't even begin to mention. But one of the things they do is they've developed a product called TranscendAP, which works on top of Kofax TotalAgility. They also have other products that work on top of the platform for things like expense reporting, vendor portal, employee onboarding. But today we're going to talk about TranscendAP. And what they do is they work with clients to customize and implement the AP automation solutions that fit their needs. And they do it fast with a 2 or 3 month launch period so you can get to return on investment quickly. Today we have their practice director, Chris Supermayam, and he's going to give us an overview of TranscendAP and a demonstration of how it works. So without any further ado, Chris, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Andy. This slide gives you a high-level overview of TranscendAP. You will see as invoices come in through various channels, how an invoice is processed from the beginning, and finally, the automatic posting of an invoice to your ERP. TranscendAP is designed to integrate with any ERPs all in real time. Today, we've integrated with many ERPs such as Microsoft AX, Great Plains, Navision, Oracle EBS, SAP, JD Edwards, NetSuite, and the list just goes on. Invoices can come in 3 channels such as mail, email, or folders. If you receive invoices via paper copies, PDF, or even TIFF format, you can simply scan them in using our solution. If you receive invoices via mail, this invoice are automatically pulled every 5 seconds and then processed. Thirdly, if you have multiple centers around the country, you can give access to the network folders to your AP processors, where they can either scan or simply copy PDF copies to these folders. Then again, our solution processes them every 5 seconds. As invoices are processed through these various channels, they go into a first activity called the invoice review activity. Here, the AP processor can visually see all the pages of an invoice and can either select to delete a blank page or even reject an invoice for later processing. Once this activity is completed, the system extracts the header and the line item information of an invoice and presents it to the AP processor as a data validation activity. This is an important activity as many functions are performed. Firstly, the system automatically matches the vendor information in real time against your ERP. There is really no need for an AP processor to manually select a vendor. Secondly, the AP processor will validate the extracted values of an invoice. If any values are incorrectly extracted, the AP processor has the ability to teach the system. Once taught, any subsequent invoices that comes in for the same vendor, the taught values are now learned. As the system learns, you will find that the time taken to process an invoice is well under 10 seconds. Thirdly, the system performs duplicate checking. If an invoice is scanned in more than once, or if an invoice already exists in the ERP, the system alerts you. Fourthly, if an invoice is a non-PO invoice, you have the ability to do GL coding. The system has the ability to memorize a set of GL codes for the selected vendor, and this GL code can be reused again, thus reducing keystrokes. The lookup of GL codes, again, is in real time against your ERP. Once data validation is completed, and if the invoice is a PO invoice, then the system performs two-way and a three-way match of the PO automatically. Any exceptions from the result of the auto match process, that invoice will be routed to an exceptions queue where the PO exceptions processor will take the necessary actions. It is important to note that the matching is performed in real time against your PO data in your ERP. Also, if an invoice is a non-PO invoice, then the invoice is now routed to your approvals process. Finally, all processed and approved invoices goes to an accountant review queue. After the final review, with a single click of a button, the invoices are automatically posted to the ERP in real time. The net effect is that the invoice header, the line items, and the GL distributions are all automatically posted. This action eliminates the need to perform any manual data entry. What you'll be seeing here today is a complete end-to-end ERP system with all the necessary notifications, the escalations, a very fast deployment, and a highly configurable and a very scalable system. For an effective AP solution, ensure that these 12 features are part of any solution. In the intelligent capture, our solution incorporates the following features. Number one, machine learning, cognitive document capture, natural language processing, online learning, machine learning, and mobile capture. Number two, the ability to automatically validate the supplier on the invoice is automatically matched against your ERP in real time. Number three, the ability to catch duplicates early for both multiple scans or even against your legacy invoices. Number four, ability to submit checks requests at any time. The ability to memorize GL coding for each vendor for later reuse, thus reducing manual keystrokes. The ability to automatically perform two-way and three-way PO matching. This reduces or even eliminates the manual matching of a PO invoice. Allow your organization to configure a non-PO approvals process based on your organizational need. The ability to integrate with the ERP in real time and receive real-time feedback after an invoice is posted. The ability for your vendor to submit, view, and monitor the status of an invoice without the need to make a phone call to an AP department. Allow a vendor to perform PO flip of an invoice. And then number 10, ability to perform a search the status of an invoice for either internally or even by our auditors. Number 12, perform complete audit trail of a given invoice. And number 12, the ability to view analytics at a management level or even at a daily AP activities. When an invoice is scanned in, our solution performs a real-time match against your ERP. We utilize a fuzzy search on name, address, city, state, and zip. If a supplier is not found, the AP processor has the ability to perform a real-time lookup against the ERP. In this screen, you can see that the supplier info is automatically matched. In case if a match is not found for various reasons, clicking on the Search Supplier icon will launch a Search Supplier pop-up. Here, the AP processor can enter partial values to perform a search. Once a valid supplier is selected, clicking on the Select button will return you back to the validation screen. Sometimes the same invoice image can be scanned in more than once, or that invoice already exists in your ERP. In this case, you can compare a side-by-side view of the invoice, and an AP processor can elect to terminate this invoice. In this screen, you can see the error message at the bottom left indicating that the invoice already exists. Clicking on the View Duplicate icon will launch a View Duplicate Invoice screen. In this screen, the AP processor can see when each invoice was scanned in and a side-by-side view of an invoice image. This allows the AP processor to terminate this invoice. The Submit Check Request functionality allows an AP processor to submit a check request, enter GL coding, upload all the necessary supporting documents, and select a routing process for approval. As you can see from the screen, the check request details are filled in, GL codes are entered, and the supporting documents are attached, and who to route to for approval is selected. The GL posting functionality allows an AP processor to select a chart of accounts in real time from your ERP. One or more GL codes can be associated to a supplier. Once associated, during GL posting process, the associated GL codes are pre-populated, thus eliminating manual GL entry. Here, the GL codes are pre-populated using percentages on each GL codes. Using the percentages against the invoice total, the GL distribution for each GL code is automatically calculated. Using a complex built-in matching algorithm, our solution performs two-way and three-way matching of a PO invoice automatically. This functionality allows an AP processor to complete an auto-matched PO invoice quickly without having to route the invoice to a PO exceptions processor, thus reducing time to complete an invoice. In this screen, clicking the Perform PO Matching button on the top left of the screen will perform the two-way and a three-way match. Here, the result of the auto-match process, all invoice line items are fully matched with the PO receipt, as indicated by the red message, Full Receipt. Again, in this case, the AP processor simply clicks the Approve button to process the PO invoice. Here, the result of the matching process resulted in partial receipts requires matching. Looking at the PO line items table on the left hand of the screen indicates that there are 4 items that were matched, 1 item was partially matched, and 4 items were not received at all. So again, in this case, the AP processor can authorize partial payment or simply route it to an exceptions processor for further decision. This screen is a typical scenario when a customer creates a single PO line item, but the supplier sent an itemized invoice. Since the sum of the itemized invoice matches that of a PO amount, the AP processor can simply highlight all the related invoice line items and pair it to the PO line items below. In this case, it was paired to a PO line item number 1. As an end user of the system, you have the flexibility to define an approval routing process based on the approval workstream and dollar threshold. Every workstream can have its own set of approvers and dollar limits. Once defined, the routing process is automatic. The workstream can be changed at any time. Here, the invoice is automatically routed to an approver. The approver has the ability to reroute to another individual, view and enter notes, reject an invoice. If there are more than one approver, it is indicated in the approval list so that the approver knows what approval order the approver is in. Invoice approval can be performed using iPhone or Android. An email notification is first sent to an approver. Clicking on the link on the invoice notification, that invoice can be routed to a work queue where the approver can see a list of other invoices to approve or directly to an invoice. The approver can enter notes, view the invoice image, and subsequently approve this invoice. After a non-PO invoice is approved and or PO invoice is processed, this invoice goes into a final accounting review queue. This gives the reviewer one last opportunity to review the invoices. Prior to posting, the reviewer has the ability to put an invoice on hold for further review. Once satisfied, with a single click of a button, all processed invoices are automatically posted to the ERP in real time. Any exceptions are immediately notified why the transaction failed. Here, the reviewer views all processed invoices. This screen shows that a total of 328 invoices are processed. The processor can put an invoice on hold, send it back to validation, view transaction details of an invoice. Once satisfied, clicking on the Post Approved Invoices button will automatically post all 328 invoices to the ERP. In this case, the ERP is AX. To view any exceptions after posting, changing the invoice status drop-down to Exceptions will show if there are any exceptions. The exceptions can then be routed back to invoice validation to make the necessary corrections and then repost them back again. Based on several invoice search criteria, anyone can search the status of an invoice. Invoices can be searched based on what is in process and what is already posted to the ERP. This is a search invoice functionality. Based on a given criteria, an invoice can be searched. Below are two tables. The top table shows invoices that are in progress. The bottom shows what has already been posted to the ERP. Once an invoice is found, clicking on the hyperlink will launch a detailed view of an invoice. Audit Trail gives a complete view of the workflow, text-based job history, and user comments throughout the approval process. Here you can see the invoice header and the line item details and the invoice image. Here you can see the job-based history. This screen shows the graphical view of the job history, showing what steps the process has taken. Here, our analytics shows both capture and data validation, determine what invoices have a straight-through processing capability, gain valuable intelligence and custom dashboards. A sample of our dashboard. Our solution meets most of any customer's day-to-day AP activities. Any business requirements that are unique to your organization, our solution is designed to be able to allow for any additional configuration very, very quickly. Here you can see a unique configuration based on a customer need. The screen layout and additional fields can be easily added. Unique configuration also applies to additional dashboards.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Wendy. That was great information, and I hope everyone on this call found today's session beneficial. We'll now head into the Q&A portion. If you have questions and you haven't submitted them already, please enter them in the Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so we have had a few questions come in. It looks like this first one is for you, Chris. What volume of invoices do I need for an automated system to be recommended?
So typically, invoice volume up to 1,000 and above per month are great candidates for TranscendAP.
Okay, great. This next one is for you as well. Is this solution a pre-packaged program or customized for each customer?
So TranscendAP is not a product. TranscendAP is a solution. So what that means is that well over 90% of your day-to-day AP activities are addressed. So the remaining 10 to 15% can be customized for each customer's unique requirements.
Thank you.
So,
and
you're welcome.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Another one looks like, what ERP systems do your solutions support?
So we have quite a bit of ERP systems that we support. So I'll go through a few of them. Number one is Oracle EBS, Microsoft Great Plains, Microsoft AX on-premise as well as in the cloud, JD Edwards, SAP, Maximo, Lawson, NetSuite, and there are a few others, but these are some of the most popular ERPs that we support today.
Thanks, Chris. Wendy, this next one is for you. What is the difference between email invoicing and e-invoicing? Aren't they the same thing?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. And a lot of people do confuse these two things, and they're not the same thing at all. Just because you get an invoice by email does not mean it is truly an e-invoice. An electronic invoice is a specific type of an invoice that comes through a portal that you've set up. And, this is not just a document that's scanned like an email would be, but it's something that's already digitized and put into a structured data format that your system can immediately ingest without you having to go back and retype it or use OCR to capture it. In essence, electronic invoicing is like a freeway that skips the need to scan and capture any document. And you would set this up through an invoice portal that you would put at the front end of your solution, and you would set up your vendors to send their invoices through this electronic portal to receive them on your end. And this would prevent you from having to do any capture or OCR, like I said. And it's really the front end of any invoice processing solution.
Great, thank you for that clarification. Chris, back over to you. What is the typical ROI for such a solution?
So the typical ROI is about 4 to 5 months, and typically we tell our prospects or even customers that it takes up to 4 to 5 months for the system to adequately learn. So what that really means is that once the system learns, in terms of extracting the correct or matching the correct vendor for you, and then extracting all the invoice values, invoice header information such as invoice number, date, sales tax, shipping, tax, and even the line items for purchase order line items, right? So once the system has learned for pretty much most of the vendors that you have, within a short to 4 to 5 months, you will realize your ROI, which means that, the time taken to approve an invoice is literally under 10 seconds.
Wonderful. And we do have time for, I think, 2 more questions. Chris, both of these are for you. The first one, is this solution available globally or just in the U.S.? Or what countries and what languages is it available?
Right. So typically what we have done now is that, at least for now, we have marketed in all of the United States as well as Canada. But yes, this solution is available globally. In terms of languages, this is something that we can sort of customize, configure per the global market. And then, of course, other things such as like taxation, the VAT, and all that kind of stuff, right? That certainly we can do that through unique configuration.
And our final question: how does TranscendAP handle emailed invoices in different formats? For example, Word, Excel, PDF, other image files.
Right. So since TranscendAP is built on top using Kofax TotalAgility, so today your vendors can submit invoices via this other sort of approved format. Obviously, PDF is the most popular one. The next one is TIFF, JPEG, BMP, GIF, and PNG.
Thanks, Chris. Well, that does take us to the end of today's session. I do want to thank you again, both Chris and Wendy, for joining us today. That was very insightful. And thank you again to all of our attendees for joining. We hope this was beneficial, and there will be an on-demand recorded version available to all of you following this webinar. Have a